time now for our rants and raves of the week, starting with you, Dan.
I have a rant. My rant is for Mike Allen and Politico. Eric Wemple of the Washington Post did an absolutely devastating blog post this week showing that Allen's must-read daily newsletter, which we already know was loaded with native advertising for clients such as the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and Bank of America, is also loaded with freebies in the form of extremely favorable items written by Mike Allen about the very people who are buying the native ads in his column. I mean, it's just nauseating, and I mean, I think that it brings the value of his column pretty close to zero when you read through this. It's just, by the way, our friend Mark Leibovich has written some pretty devastating stuff in the past about Mike Allen in his book This Town, and this really drives it home.
People love him, though. All right, Callie, what do you got?
In Michigan, a case, there are several other cases, but this was a big one. A guy just won an election by 71 votes or 91 votes. I can't quite remember. But the point is that after he was elected, then they found out that he was a convicted murderer. Not, I mean, he served his time, blah, blah, blah. But, that's a piece of information which should have been a part of his bio and normally might have been covered by the media, but because they've had cutbacks, no, they don't have time to do the kind of in-depth profiles. So the head of the RTNDA, which is the Radio Television News Directors Association, says this is, a good example of what we've been talking about. This is information that everybody should have. They should be able to make their opinion based on a full range of information, which could only happen if they had time to find out, and they didn't have time.
So that was a rant or a rave?
That was a rant.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, John. Roy, sorry. Roy.
Well, I have a rave for a piece of investigative journalism that a lot of people may not have noticed because it wasn't in a lot of newspapers, if those of us who are still reading newspapers. This was an amazing expose that's still going on, done by the Reuters organization. And the reporter is an old colleague of mine from the Wall Street Journal, a fellow named Scott Paltrow. And the series that he's working on, still going on, looks at the Defense Department and the horrific lack of accountability. It's called Unaccountable is the title of the series. How the finance reporting at the Department of Defense is really non-existent. And he's not exaggerating, and neither am I. I've looked into this a bit. I used to cover the Defense Department. It is amazing how little accountability there is financially. The Defense Department cannot account for weaponry that's still unusable but still being stored. Troops are not being paid because of problems having to do with finances and financial reporting. It's fallen way, way behind what's been required of corporate America. And the next piece in this series by Scott Paltrow, I mentioned his name before, I think, is coming out in December, and we should all watch for that. NPR picked it up. A number of broadcast outlets picked it up, but not many newspapers have.
All right, we'll look for it. All right, John.
I have a rave for the White House Correspondents Association, often reviled, not unfairly, as lapdogs. But the lapdog bit back
oh, yes.
This past week when they are complaining bitterly to the White House, Jay Carney et al., about their unprecedented practice of excluding photographers from official presidential events. Oh, you can get photographs, all right, but they're taken by the White House's personal photographer, i.e. hagiographer.
Yeah.
And if you think that it doesn't make any difference, who cares who takes the picture, the fact is that chances of a picture that tells a less than flattering story about a given event just went from perhaps small to zero. And this is part of a broader picture of this White House engaging in Orwellian efforts to control the flow of information about its activities. Disgraceful.
So that is a change, right? That it has now.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Good to know.
All right. I have a rant for the New York Times, which is taken to trending things what I call a trend of one stories. Like today, a trend of one. People who take their dogs to back alleys of New York City and treat them as if it's a fox hunt, and they send the dogs in, with the bugles and the red coats, just kidding, and chase rats, and then kill the rats. trend of one. You can't tell me that that is a common practice in New York City or anywhere else. And we've noticed this several times in the past. There was a story a couple months ago about people who go to Disneyland and hire somebody who's handicapped so they can get in the front of the line. Do you really believe that that is a trend? There was one rich person in New Jersey and New York City who did it. I flat out don't believe that that was a trend.
What happened to standards?
This is New York Times. They do this all the time.
Trend of one.
Yes, but they particularly do it about women. Oh,
I
God,
know.
here are these professional women who are not living up to their potential. Let's see what they're not doing.
What happened to the
You know?
days when you had to support your bogus trend story with 3 examples?
Exactly, just one. All right, trend of one.